welcome you watching Global Lens on News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna, and our focus here continues to be on deteriorating India-Canada relations. Tensions between India and Canada are escalating swiftly. After tit-for-tat expulsions of diplomats, the two countries have issued tit-for-tat travel advisories. A day after Canada updated its travel advisory for India, India's Ministry of External Affairs has released an advisory for Indians in Canada. The advisory states, and I quote, "In view of growing anti-India activities and politically condoned hate crimes and criminal violence in Canada, all Indian nationals there and those contemplating travel are urged to exercise utmost caution. Recently, threats have particularly targeted Indian diplomats and sections of the Indian community who oppose the anti-India agenda. Indian nationals are therefore advised to avoid travelling to regions and potential venues in Canada that have seen such incidents." Urging Indian students to stay vigilant, the advisory states, given the deteriorating security environment in Canada, Indian students in particular are advised to exercise extreme caution and remain vigilant. Indian nationals and students from India and Canada must also register with the High Commission of India in Ottawa or Consulates General of India in Toronto and Vancouver through their respective websites or the Madad portal, madad.gov.in. Registration would enable the High Commission and the Consulates General to better connect with Indian citizens in Canada in the event of any emergency or untoward incident. This comes after Canada had updated its travel advisory to India, referring to the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir, Assam and Manipur. And all these developments come in the wake of heightened tensions between the two countries after Canada accused India of being involved in the killing of a Khalistani terrorist, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who was a Canadian citizen. Amidst the growing diplomatic row, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar today met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the new Parliament House to discuss India-Canada ties. It all started on Monday when Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told the Canadian Parliament that there were credible allegations suggesting that Indian agents were linked to the killing of Nijjar. Credible allegations, Trudeau claimed, without presenting any concrete evidence, either before India or the Canadian Parliament to substantiate his allegations. India on Monday had dismissed these allegations as absurd and motivated. And it's not just India. Canada's opposition leader too is demanding evidence from the Prime Minister. Taking a jibe at Justin Trudeau over his allegations against India, Pierre Poilievre has said Trudeau should come clean with all the facts in order for Canadians to make any judgment. In a media address, the opposition leader said, "I think the Prime Minister needs to come clean with all the facts. We need to know all the evidence possible so that Canadians can make judgments on the issue." The Prime Minister has not provided any facts. He provided a statement, and I will emphasize that he did not tell me any more in private than he told Canadians in public. So we want to see more information. He added that the allegations could be found untrue or incredible if more information is not provided. He went on to say we need to have the evidence that allowed the Prime Minister to come to the conclusions that he has made. Now, even as Canadian politicians seek answers from Trudeau, more important information on this unfolding saga has come to light. The Washington Post has reported that weeks before making these explosive allegations implicating Indian officials in the killing of Sikh separatist leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar, Canadian officials had sought public condemnation of the murder from their allies, including the United States, but were met with reluctance. The report says that during the weeks leading up to the G20 summit in India, the Five Eyes countries, that's the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, Australia and New Zealand, held closed-door discussions on this issue. These countries, however, chose not to make any public comment on the matter during the summit. Clearly, Justin Trudeau's attempts to corner host India during the high-profile G20 summit failed spectacularly. While Trudeau now claims that Canada is not looking to provoke India or escalate the situation, India has firmly rejected his accusation, saying such unsubstantiated allegations seek to shift the focus from Khalistani terrorists and extremists who've been provided shelter in Canada and continue to threaten India's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The inaction of the Canadian government on this matter has been a long-standing and continuing concern. That Canadian political figures have openly expressed sympathy for such elements remains a matter of deep concern. Hardeep Singh Nijjar, the man whose killing has sparked this diplomatic row, had been designated a terrorist by India in 2020. He was accused of supporting terror attacks in Punjab, and India had even sought his extradition in 2022 after he was linked to the killing of a Hindu priest in Punjab the same year. But like on every other occasion, Canada turned down India's extradition request. The issue of Canada's continuing support to Khalistanis came up even during the G20 summit in New Delhi, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi making it clear to the Canadian Prime Minister that India expected his government to crack down on anti-India forces who were linked to various acts of violence and terrorism. In fact, the vibes between the two leaders were quite frosty, with Trudeau being snubbed and denied formal bilateral talks with Prime Minister Modi, who in fact held one-on-one talks with most other leaders on the sidelines of the summit. While the US and the UK have expressed their concern over Canada's allegations, Australia has said, "We are closely engaged with our partners on these developments. We have conveyed our concerns at senior levels to India." The diplomatic storm raised by Justin Trudeau could have repercussions for Indians living in Canada. Sikhs for Justice, a pro-Khalistan organization banned in India, has threatened Hindus of Indian origin and asked them to leave Canada for supporting the country of their origin. In a viral video, SFJ leader Gurpatwant Pannun says, and I quote, "Hindu, leave Canada, go to India. You not only support India, but you're also supporting the suppression of speech and expression of pro-Khalistan Sikhs." Pannun, too, has been designated as a terrorist in India. These pro-Khalistan organizations have regularly held anti-India rallies across Canada, organized so-called referendums on Khalistan, openly issued threats to India's diplomats in that country, including the High Commissioner, called for violence against them, vandalized Indian missions, and celebrated the assassination of former Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, who was killed at the height of the Khalistani movement in 1984. But there is much more to this. According to Indian agencies, at least 9 separatist outfits that support various terror groups have bases in Canada. Many of them have been involved in terror attacks and killings in Punjab, including the murder of popular Punjabi singer Sidhu Moosewala. Multiple dossiers have been handed over to Canadian authorities. Some of these individuals have Interpol Red Corner notices pending against them. Despite all of this, Canada has refused to act against any of these organizations or individuals and rejected every single extradition request put forth by India. The World Sikh Organization, the Khalistan Tiger Force, Sikhs for Justice, Babbar Khalsa International and other such outfits have been working at the behest of Pakistan and operating freely from Canadian soil, according to Indian agencies. Now consider this. The 1985 Air India Kanishka bombings carried out by Khalistani terrorists that killed 331 people was the worst terror attack in Canadian history. And the Justin Trudeau government decided in its wisdom to release from jail Inderjeet Singh Rayat in 2017. Rayat was the only person convicted for the Kanishka bombings. Fact is, Trudeau has supported Khalistani extremist forces in Canada for years now as part of his cynical vote bank politics. Not only do these elements constitute a support base for his party, some of them are part of his government too. Meanwhile, as another fallout of this Khalistan controversy, the India tour of Punjabi Canadian singer Shubneet Singh, who goes by the stage name Shub, has been cancelled thanks to his pro-Khalistan stance. There was an uproar after he shared a distorted map of India on the social media. The sponsor of the tour, electronics major Boat, pulled out, and ticketing platform Book My Show has initiated a ticket refund for the fans who had bought tickets to his shows. So as you can see, a lot has happened in just the last 48 hours, and India-Canada tensions are clearly snowballing. The question we're asking on Global Lens tonight is this: are ties between the two countries that were already frosty for many years now going into deep freeze? Just what is the way forward?
India, the government of India, needs to take this matter with the utmost seriousness. We are doing that. We are not looking to provoke or escalate. We are simply laying out the facts as we understand them, and we want to work with the Government of India to lay everything clear and to ensure that there is proper process. One of the things that is so important today is that India and the Government of India takes seriously this matter. It is extremely serious, and it has far-reaching consequences in international law and otherwise. For Canada, as I said yesterday, we're going to remain calm. We're going to remain grounded in our democratic principles and values. We're going to follow the evidence and make sure that the work is done to hold people. Over the course of the summer, we have been working closely with our intelligence agencies who are moving forward in their analysis. We wanted to make sure that we had solid grounding in understanding what was going on in analysis and indeed in facts. We wanted to make sure we were taking the time to talk with our allies, to share what we knew. We wanted to make sure that we fully shared with the Government of India the seriousness and the depths of our preoccupations and indeed conclusions. But Canadians have a right to know and need to know when things are going on like this, and that's why we made the decision to do this.
I think it's incredibly important that we allow the Canadian authorities to conduct their investigation. I think it would be unhelpful to speculate until they have conducted that speculation. Obviously, we have a very strong relationship with Canada, a very strong relationship with India, and what we want to do is we want to see an investigation into this. We expect, of course, full cooperation with that investigation, and we'll wait for the outcome of that before making any further comment.
I do have discussions with Prime Minister Trudeau, but one of the things that I do, unlike my predecessor, I don't send out text messages. I keep those discussions confidential. Justin Trudeau is a friend of mine. He's a fine Prime Minister of Canada. I was pleased to engage with him at the G20. He has expressed his concerns about this on behalf of the Canadian government, and the Australian Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, has also expressed concerns.
Now on to our show that you can look forward to every day at 10 p.m. and 3 p.m. The Duologue series starts on Connected TV from the 22nd of September. Here's a sneak peek.
Do you have a very simple SOP?
If you put filth at the mango tree's root, it becomes sweet mango.
Sportsperson like Sania Mirza written about more than the women's cricketer.
Journalist, for some reason, doesn't like an athlete. The narrative is very different.
So why have people been so much enticed to come and take over your businesses?
लड़की सुंदर होती है तो उसके पीछे बहुत लड़के आते हैं.
To us normal people, the doctor is somewhere in between us and the God.
When a patient's mother touches my feet, begging to save her child's life, I don't feel empowered. I feel humiliated.
Is it fair to call you an Indophile?
Very much so.
What about China?
A local problem is a global problem.
Suppose if you had donned the seat of the chairman, maybe by now Oxford or Cambridge would have had chairwoman as a legitimate English word.
She is the most qualified.
Giving good value system to children was more important than career.
How do you deal with success and failure?
First thing is to clearly know what you want in life.
Who is Lutyens Media?
It is a bunch of people.
What has Khan market got to do about
Just
it?
a function of its location.
Duologue with Barun Das, world premiere on Connected TV from September 22nd to 29th at 10 p.m. Only on News9 Live, India's first and only digital exclusive English news stream for Connected TV, supported by Alliance Broadband.
All right, let's now return to our focus on the fast deteriorating India-Canada relations amidst the diplomatic row. To understand this, let's go across to our panel of experts. Joining me on Global Lens tonight, Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, former Indian diplomat, Chirayu Thakur, foreign affairs expert, and completing the panel tonight is former Indian diplomat Ambassador S.D. Muni. Gentlemen, welcome to Global Lens. Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, sir, let me start with you. There's just so much that's happened in the last 24 to 48 hours. It's difficult to even encapsulate it. But let me begin with the tit-for-tat travel advisories that have come. There were tit-for-tat diplomatic expulsions followed by these tit-for-tat advisories. Now, whatever Canada may have said in its advisory, what struck me is the very strongly worded advisory that's been issued by India, which states, in view of growing anti-India activities and politically condoned hate crimes and criminal violence in Canada, all Indian nationals there and those contemplating travel are urged to exercise utmost caution. Recently, threats have particularly targeted Indian diplomats and sections of the Indian community who oppose the anti-India agenda. Indian nationals are therefore advised to avoid travelling to regions and potential venues in Canada that have seen such incidents. And then, of course, there is advice for students in particular who've been asked to exercise extreme caution and remain vigilant at all times, and also register with India's High Commission or Consulates General. What do you make, sir, of this very, very strongly worded advisory that has been issued by India?
Thank you very much, Neha, for having me on your show. I don't think it is a particularly, hard-worded advisory. I think it is an appropriately worded advisory. Because, this is the problem, this is the concern that India has had as far as Canada is concerned, because there are, activities that are going on in Canada. Canada is giving space to these Khalistani terrorists, to those who are spreading hate crimes, those who are threatening our, High Commission, our High Commissioner, our personnel there. As far as the Hindu temples are concerned, they are being defiled. So I think all these actions are being taken there by terrorists, and no action is being taken by the Canadian authorities. So, we had to, even if there had been no advisory from Canada, because there was really no need for an advisory. You know what Justin Trudeau says, I don't want to escalate, I don't want to provoke. That is exactly what he's doing. That's exactly what he has done by going to the Parliament and making this absolutely, and I agree with with what the Indian Foreign Ministry has said. It's an absurd statement. Meaning India is the largest democracy. How can he even sort of, and without offering a shred of evidence, he says credible allegations. Frankly, between you and me, Neha, I have never heard that expression in the past. Can allegations be credible? Allegations are allegations. Credible is only evidence. And has he been able to provide any evidence? No. And then his foreign minister also says that, there is a likelihood that a foreign country might be involved. And if that were to be true, that means they don't have the foggiest idea. And without having any idea, they pick on a senior diplomat from India and expel him. I think they have really, he says, Justin Trudeau says, we want to stay grounded. This is exactly what he's done. He's not being grounded. Meaning, unless you have been able, and even without getting any evidence, you are trying to rummage support from your partners. He says he's discussed it with the United States. So, coming back to this advisory, I think it is very appropriate. We have a large number of students there. And in view of, what are the threats that have been emanating from these people, from the terrorists, from Khalistanis, who I agree is a very minuscule portion of, the Indian community that is based in Canada. But they have given these threats, and threats have been made even up to the Prime Minister himself. So obviously, it is the duty of the Indian government to advise our students, to advise our, our diaspora, members of our diaspora, that they need to be careful and they need to be in touch with our High Commission. That's all that we've done. And, we have just reiterated our concerns on the inaction of the Canadian government, which we have been quite open about and which were discussed even with Justin Trudeau when he was in Delhi. Yeah.
You're quite right, sir. Perhaps to call it credible allegations is an oxymoron. Either you have credible evidence or you don't. And the million-dollar question that Justin Trudeau needs to answer at this point is, where is that evidence? Has it been shared with India? Has it been shared with Canada's allies, who he says he's reached out to? Has it even been shared with the Canadian Parliament? And why do we ask this? Chirayu Thakur, let me come to you. It is Canada's opposition leader, forget about what India is saying. Canada's opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre, has taken a jibe at Justin Trudeau, and he has made a statement saying, and I'm quoting him here, I think the Prime Minister needs to come clean with all the facts. We need to know all the evidence possible so that Canadians can make a judgment on this issue. The Prime Minister has not provided any facts, he has provided a statement. And I will emphasize that he has not told me any more in private than he has told Canadians in public. We need to have the evidence that allowed the Prime Minister to come to the conclusions that he has made. Now, this is a perfectly reasonable statement being made by Canada's opposition leader here. Statements being made, claims being made, allegations being leveled. Where is the evidence?
Neha, I think it is fair, not only on part of the Canada's opposition, but everyone involved. The stakes are as high as they possibly can. And it's really very important that we come down to the realm of reality from this Justinian realm of speculation and intuition. Look, there are multiple levels at which people have demonstrated very clear incredulity with Justin's claim. The first is his own people. I have been watching a lot of Canadian news lately to see how people are domestically reacting to it. Everybody is skeptical about the claims because there isn't anything credible that has come out of it. He himself admitted in the House of Commons that the investigation is still going on. If the investigation is still going on, how can you come to conclusion? You could have waited for another week. Let the conclusions come. You have some credible evidence, then you can go and share to the world. So, your own people are skeptical. The opposition, by virtue of opposing you, is skeptical of you, and they want to see hard a thing before they can rally around the flag. The third is your allies. Look what Washington Post has reported. Nobody is willing to believe Justin. Nobody, literally. Look at the UK, look at the US, look at Australia. Everybody has expressed concern. So what? I mean, even I'm concerned if this kind of activities are happening. But expressing concerns doesn't mean anything. Now, let us set aside this for a moment and assuming that there is some smoke. What is important is we don't know, and what is important is that we need to understand his intentions and motivations. What Pierre Poilievre has already raised is that it is not only India. In the Indian case, you only have credible allegations, which, as you said, is oxymoronic as it can get. But apart from that, so far as China's interference is concerned, there is hard evidence, and the Prime Minister is unable to take a position on Chinese interference in his internal politics. So the million-dollar question, another one, is that why Justin Trudeau is going after India because he was snubbed in G20. Is he trying to make this personal? Is vote bank so imperative? Are his ratings sinking at such a low level that this is the only way he can get out? Because he's not speaking about the Chinese interference. He's only speaking about the Indian interference. And so far as seeking cooperation is concerned, cooperation goes by both ways. He has not positively addressed the whole issue of extradition. He has not cooperated. His Canadian his agencies have not cooperated, and moreover, look, the same problem is with the Britain as well. But here, the British authorities, they have at least made in principle comment that we are cooperating, will not let Khalistani movement flounder. And no matter what kind of society you are, political violence is unacceptable. At least you should be balanced enough in your posturing, and say that, look, we may support freedom of expression to certain extent, but we would not accept calls for genocide, calls for killing of Hindus, calls for political violence on our soil. That is also the flip side. Isn't that your value? So the couple of questions raises and which makes this claims more skeptical. A, why you're not doing with China and you're only doing this with India? The second is, why this? You could have waited for another week. And given all this cloud and his own sinking ship, politically sinking ship, I think it makes us more skeptical of Justin's claims.
I think you're quite right, Chirayu. Justin Trudeau seems to be clasping at straws. He seems to be struggling for his own political survival. Only in the last few days, he's had to issue a clarification to the local media that he's not stepping down as Prime Minister. It's actually come to that. And yes, you're right. The Canadian opposition leader has pointed out that Chinese nationals have been held hostage. I beg your pardon, Canadian nationals have been held hostage by China. The Prime Minister doesn't feel the need to comment on that. And, you know, the way he is dragging India through the mud, it raises multiple questions about his conduct, his politics, his ideological moorings, really, and cynical vote bank politics that he's playing. Ambassador Muni, if I could come to you, sir, we will talk about the cynical vote bank politics that Justin Trudeau has been playing for many years now. But, you know, let's focus on what's happened in the recent past. As has been pointed out by Chirayu, and I mentioned this at the start of my show, not only has Justin Trudeau told the Canadian Parliament that there are quote-unquote credible allegations linking Indian agents to the killing of Nijjar, the Washington Post has reported that weeks before he made these allegations in the Canadian Parliament, Justin Trudeau actually sought a public condemnation of Nijjar's killing from his allies, namely the United States and the United Kingdom, Australia. But his efforts met with reluctance. None of these countries actually were willing to make a public comment on this issue during the G20 summit in India. So it's very clear that the man who was sulking throughout the G20 summit, who did not even get a chance to have bilateral talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who decided to skip the G20 official leaders' dinner, was trying or hoping to corner India, but his efforts failed spectacularly. My point is, sir, is this how one democracy behaves with another? Is this how friendly countries behave with each other?
Well, certainly this is not the way they should be dealing with India, and particularly a democracy like India. But you know, the answer of all these questions lie in what you have been saying, that these are the formula for survival for the Canadian Prime Minister. As you know, he has a large number, but he is in a minority in the parliament, and he gets support from National Democratic Party, which is flooded with a lot of these separatist Akalis which are there. And he cannot survive without their support. I have a feeling that before he came to India, he was probably told by his ally party that he should raise this question in India with Narendra Modi. And probably he did it in his own way, as he confessed later on. And going back, but whatever the statement he made in India was still in a moderate tone. He goes back, and probably his ally has said that you have not done enough, and therefore he came out with this statement without much of an evidence, as all of us are agreeing with this. I mean, this is not the democracy. It is a question of within the democracy of a weak leader who is seeking his own survival, and in this survival he is making all kind of wild allegations against a country with which it has lot at stake. And I think any kind of straining of relations between India and Canada will harm Canada more than anybody else. I think this is what the opposition leader there is realizing. This is what many people there are realizing. But unfortunately, he has allowed even the kind of statement which one of the associates of Nijjar made, Pannu. He said, we will attack all the Hindus. Now that's why the advisory given by Government of India was necessary. But the government is not doing anything to control them. So it is a problem within, rooted within Prime Minister Trudeau's politics and politics of survival. Therefore, all the answers actually lie there. There is nothing else which is understandable, and that's why the two, three allies, UK, America has again made a statement that you should investigate more, and Australia are not endorsing what Trudeau has said, largely because they also understand that this is his own political survival and political existential problem.
No doubt about that. Let's be very clear. All these countries, the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, that Justin Trudeau had reached out to, refused to publicly comment on this issue during the G20 summit in India, as Trudeau had wanted. Now they have come out and said, we are concerned about these allegations. Let there be a probe. That's what the US has said, that's what the United Kingdom has said, and Australia has said we've conveyed our concerns to India at the highest level, and that is all there is to it, while, you know, everybody waits for Justin Trudeau to actually present evidence to substantiate his wild claims. Ambassador Sajanhar, coming back to you, I want to just take a moment, sir, to share with our viewers some important facts about this man called Hardeep Singh Nijjar, whose killing has triggered this diplomatic row between India and Canada. Who is this man? He was gunned down outside the Gurudwara in June of this year in the British Columbia province of Canada. Remember, Nijjar was designated as a terrorist by India in 2020. He was accused of supporting terror attacks in Punjab. India had sought his extradition just last year after he was linked to the killing of a Hindu priest in Punjab. But like on every other occasion, Canada turned down India's request for an extradition. And Ambassador Sajanhar, it doesn't end there. Indian agencies have pointed out that there are at least 9 separatist outfits supporting various terror organizations that have their bases in Canada. Many of them have been involved in terror attacks and murders in Punjab. One of the most high-profile cases is that of popular Punjabi singer Sidhu Moosewala. Multiple dossiers have been handed over to Canadian authorities. Many of these individuals have Interpol Red Corner notices pending against them, and despite all of this overwhelming evidence that India has presented to Canadian authorities, Canada has steadfastly refused to act against these individuals and organizations, and Justin Trudeau continues to be their sympathizer, their active supporter, and he defends all these acts in the name of freedom of expression. That's the kind of politics this man has been playing.
Absolutely, Neha. I think this is quite preposterous, the way he's going. But if you permit, I'll just like to make one comment on what you had mentioned when you said that Australia has said that they have raised this issue with India at the highest level. I don't think, that was the statement by Penny Wong. If I remember correctly, definitely, highest level would mean with the Prime Minister.
Well,
and
that statement has been made by the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese.
That
the matter has been raised at the highest level in India.
I see. Okay, because, what I have heard is from Penny Wong, and she said that, we have raised it with the senior level. So, what I took from there is that it has been raised at the level of maybe, deputy ministers or something, not even at the level of the foreign ministers. But if you say this is what has been mentioned, because we have not heard any conversation that has taken place between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Albanese. But, meaning that's a, side issue. We can sort of, check out on this as to what has been stated. But basically what you say is absolutely right. There are so many cases that you mentioned these 9 organizations, whether it is this KTF, Khalsa, terrorist, or Tiger Force, many. And you look at the sort of logo that they have guns in that, they have sort of, daggers, swords in that, which means it is an organization which is basically promoting and supporting violence. And, this Babbar Khalsa International, they were the ones who were responsible for the downing of Kanishka in 1985. 331 people killed, several of them, hundreds of them from, Canadian citizens themselves. I am absolutely aghast when the foreign minister of Canada says that we have an international security crisis on our hands. One terrorist has been gunned down in their own country, and that has led to this international security crisis. And there are if it is that, you complete the investigation quickly. I have been Neha, to many of these countries, and I can tell you, I will not mention the names of places, but I have seen that many of these gurdwaras, unfortunately, really become dens of human trafficking. They become dens of drug trafficking and so many illegal activities that are taking place. And I am reasonably certain that this would have been, some sort of an inter-gang warfare, which keeps happening very often in the gurdwaras in many of these places. It might not be coming out, but it does sort of, come in the press and in the papers there. So I think they really need to go into the depth, look at the details, find out the details, rather than making absolutely specious statements, baseless statements. And then, Prime Minister says, I'm not, trying to provoke, or he's already done, meaning this is not how countries conduct their relations with each other. And I think it really did come as a surprise to everyone. We knew that his visit to India for the G20 was not a particularly happy one, particularly pleasant one, more because of his own actions rather than because of anything else. But, if this is the way that he is allowing his personal sentiments sort of, to get reflected, and, of course, there's the vote bank politics that is involved, but there is also, I think, his ideology, because even when he did not need, there was a time when he did not need the support of these, the National Democratic Party, etc., etc. But still, he has been very, cozying up to these elements. So I think all this really, he needs to look within himself and get through with the investigation, because that is what will really bring out what the facts are.
Absolutely. And the support for these Khalistani forces, unfortunately, goes back to the times of Trudeau Sr. And Justin Trudeau, right? And Justin Trudeau has certainly not covered himself in glory ever since he's come to office with his, postures and political actions. And, I have to admit, Ambassador Sajanhar, that even I couldn't help but think that his cynical vote bank politics apart, it seems like Justin Trudeau could simply not deal with the personal snub that he received from India during the G20 summit, given the timing of these allegations that he's made. Remember, this murder took place 3 months ago. The Canadian authorities have not managed to make a single arrest so far, but they go ahead and point a finger at India. Okay, Chirayu Thakkar, coming back to you at this point, just to build on the argument that we've been making on the show so far. Again, going by what Indian agencies have said, I talked about how there are at least 9 separatist organizations that Indian agencies say have been operating freely from Canadian soil. Some of these are the World Sikh Organization, the Khalistan Tiger Force, Sikhs for Justice, Babbar Khalsa International. Many of these are banned in India. And now consider this. This is very important for our viewers to know. The 1985 Air India Kanishka bombings that Ambassador Sajjanha referred to were, as we know, carried out by Khalistani terrorists. They left 331 people dead. This was the worst terror attack in Canadian history. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The Justin Trudeau government, in its wisdom, decided to release from jail Inderjeet Singh Rayat in 2017. Who is Inderjeet Singh Rayat? He was the only person convicted for the Kanishka bombings. What does this tell us about Justin Trudeau's politics? Chirayu.
Neha, if I can say it in one word, it's absolute political naivete. Look, I've been talking about this for the last couple of days on television, privately in other instances. Let's take what political maturity is. Let's take an example. This is not the first kind of a situation where a leader has to balance between internal politics and global realities. For example, Barack Obama, he was the one who issued or who refused the visa to Narendra Modi for alleged role in 2002, etc. But when it became a reality that now Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of India in 2014, and now you have to deal it, India is a very important partner. The same Barack Obama rolled the red carpet, treated him as a head of a state, head of a nation, and use that practical wisdom. At times you have to be pragmatic and understood the potential of India in the overall geopolitical landscape. Now let's go to Justin. Justin has been the same old dogmatic, monotonous political toad that he has been. He is continuously using the same script that I'm going to pander to this individual group of people, this particular group of people for the sake of my political gains domestically. And I don't know how many seats or how many specific percentage of voting this people can swing. But one thing he has dogmatically understood that these people are real. But he is not understanding that by pandering to this particular political constituency, he is actually losing support of a few other constituencies. So, for example, I'll give you, as I said, I'm tracking the Canadian media as well simultaneously since this episode broke out, and even during the G20. And I was listening to the Saskatchewan, which is a very important province there, one of the four major provinces, and their trade minister. And that trade minister said that under Justin Trudeau, the provincial trade has dropped from 1 billion US dollar to 500 million US dollar. And if nothing happens about the India Canada trade, this has a potential to dropping even by another 50%. So what is essentially saying is, and what it creates loss for Canadians. Look, for Canada, $4 billion exports means something, especially the kind of sectors that they work in. For look, India is a very big player now. For India, if Reuters is to be believed, we already are 700 and somewhere over $770 billion, and this is growing at the pace. This year, we are going to be $900 billion. Sure, every penny hurts, but if $4 billion here and there, it doesn't make a lot of difference. And given India's might, the way India is becoming an export destination, and the stuff that the direction of India's economy, Canada will be dwarfed in the next couple of years. So Justin doesn't have any idea of how everyone, its most important partners, are coalescing around India. India is seen as a vital vital partner in the challenge against China. It's an important export destination. It is hurting the jobs of average Canadian, and everything for the sake of what? To keep a bunch of people who believe in political violence, which is not a values driven approach, who believe in killing of Hindus, who believe of like exodus of Hindus from Canada. And it is this kind of worse political philosophy that he wants to pander in the name of freedom of speech. I mean, people can see through this boondoggle. people can absolutely see that this is worst kind of identity politics that Justin is playing, and it is not helping Canada. And I'm telling you, 2025 is far away, and in the next 2 years, if Justin continues this kind of approach, he will bring down India Canada ties to such a low level that from there recovery will be very difficult.
You're quite right, Chirayu, that, if these incidents disrupt the economic ties between the two countries, Canada stands to lose much more than India does. We in fact had on our screen those trade figures as well. Let's not forget the number of Indian students who study in Canadian universities. And, apart from that, if Justin Trudeau needed any further evidence of India's growing global stature and clout, he just needs to look at the resounding success of the recent G20 summit and how we managed to bring everyone together, from the G70 nations to China and Russia, as far as the New Delhi leaders' declaration is concerned.
Neha,
Yes,
if I can,
yes.
if I can quickly add something,
Yes.
what in his political naivete he is not realizing is that when you are waging a war against a country like India, whom everybody is coalescing around, you don't have any bargaining chips. If you put a pedal on the number of students, those students are bringing $5 billion of trade. You don't have anything that India wants. You don't have leverage. India is not your arms buyer. India is not getting aid from you. When you start the war, what do you have in your arsenal? Practically nothing. And this is, to my mind, the biggest sign of political naivete so far as Justin Trudeau's calculations are concerned.
Absolutely correct. And, before I take this back to Ambassador Muni, let's also tell our viewers another very important piece of information, which is that Sikhs for Justice leader Gurpatwant Pannun, in the last 24 hours, has released a video that's gone viral on the social media. Do you know what he is doing in that video? He's threatening Hindus present in Canada, asking them to leave the country. He says, Indo-Hindu, leave Canada, go to India. You not only support India, but you're also supporting the suppression of speech and expression of pro-Khalistan Sikhs. Mr. Justin Trudeau, is this freedom of expression according to you? I will go back to Ambassador Muni in just a moment. Before that, I want to play out for our viewers what Justin Trudeau told the Canadian Parliament on Monday, that one statement that triggered this diplomatic storm.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Any involvement of a foreign government in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty.
Okay, this is what started this entire row, which seems to be escalating now by the hour. Ambassador Muni, let me ask you a larger question now, sir. All the developments of the last 48 hours apart, how big a blow has Justin Trudeau dealt to India-Canada ties? These relations were already quite frosty. It was evident during his visit to India in 2018, where it was widely reported that he received a snub from India. That story repeated itself during the recent G20 summit. But this seems to have taken the relationship to rock bottom. How do you see it, sir? And how do you think we're going to bounce back from this?
I agree with you. This has taken the relationship to rock bottom. And it will take a lot of time to repair them, if at all. There are efforts on two sides to repair them. But you mentioned about Pannu's statement. In fact, in my previous statement, I drew attention to that. And that is something where I think we in India have to be very careful, because these are madcaps. And, if they start anything like attacking Hindus or attacking temples and attacking such, they are already attacking Indian missions and Indian establishments. But at the social level, it can lead to serious problems, not only in these three countries, but maybe also in India. And we have to take care. Recall the way Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated, recall the way these extremists go about it. So I think this is also a matter little of being alert on our part that no such incidents firstly take place, and if at all they take place, they are being dealt with very carefully and very efficiently. Now, this is where the problem is, and if this happens, I think relations with other countries, which are the part of their Five Eye mechanism of intelligence sharing and all that, because there are a huge number of Indian diaspora all around, and there are a huge number of Sikhs around. Not all of them are influenced by them. There is a minuscule number which is influenced by them, but the extremist in minuscule number can be very damaging. And I think one has to prepare. India has to go into negotiations even with US, Australia, and UK. UK has taken a very moderate and very responsible position so far, but we have to ensure that the diaspora there is not affected, not harmed by these madcaps who take to extremist actions. So this is also necessary. But to your basic question, there is no doubt that the relationship has been deteriorated to a very, very unexpected low level.
All right, Chirayu, I will give you the last word. The ties, as I keep saying, were already frosty. Have they now gone into deep freeze?
Well, look, you can always leave the hesitations of history behind yourselves and move ahead. There is always a possibility. If you have the willingness and the guts to do it, as both the other senior diplomats were speaking before me, the point is Justin Trudeau has to understand the importance of India. And if he is convinced of the importance of India, I think he'll make a course corrective. If he is not, I think we'll have to wait for another couple of years until the elections happen in October 2025. His ratings are sinking. This is a sign of desperation, and I hope better sense prevails. Adults come back onto the driving seat, and we can take India-Canada ties ahead.
That's very well put. You're hoping that adults will take over the reins of power in Canada once again. This man is behaving like a child in a very juvenile fashion, and he has caused incalculable harm to India-Canada ties. And it's interesting you say this, Chirayu, because we did have former diplomats on our show even last night who actually said that, you know, it's not really about India-Canada ties. It's about this one man who's inflicted all the damage. And that could change with the next election in Canada. On that note, Ambassador S.D. Muni, Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar, Chirayu Thakkar, thank you so much for joining me on Global Lens tonight. It's been a pleasure talking to you.